Joey Porter Jr., cornerback, Penn State, 6'2", 193, 34-inch arms, 4.46 in the 40, more than fast enough with that size, right? 35-inch vert, 10.9 broad, not quite as explosive, played 1,700 snaps, another Big Ten corner, by the way. He was only targeted 30 times all of last year. I like that. I like teams that are like, guys that are so good that offenses are like, we're not throwing the ball this guy's way. He only gave up 143 yards into his coverage. He only had one interception. I think a lot of that is, a good question about whether or not, they're just not throwing his way or whatever. He was certainly not as productive as Witherspoon. But, I question, is that a Nnamdi Asamoah thing, or is that just a kind of like there are other bad players in the secondary and they just threw that way type of thing? So what do you see when you look at Joey Porter's son, Joey Porter Jr.?
Look at that, a classic, PhD in math analytics move to say, on one hand, you really like Joey that they didn't throw to him. And would you rather people not throw to Joey to get a feel what he truly is as a cover guy versus Witherspoon, who you were, wondering about him playing against some lesser talent? This is a really interesting conversation. And I only say it because it's really, you're exactly right. I like that Porter's not thrown to. When he's playing on the right side, I mean, obviously the right side is not, usually you're flipping it, your standout corner. I don't even know who their other corner is at Penn State. Of course, this guy's got a lot of skills. He's obviously tall. He's a big dude who covers a lot of ground, right? As you know, he's not the quick twitch guy that's moving. He is not an inside guy. He is outside all the way in my mind. I like everything about him. I happened to be talking to someone from Penn State recently, and they were just raving about all he was as far as a smart player, as far as, what he's going to do at the next level because, he's got pedigree, right? I mean, his dad's sitting in the stands watching him run, the 40, and he was like, the first run he had at the combine, it was a 4.52. That 4.48 must have come from, did it come from a pro day? Do you know? I don't know where you got the 4.48.
I got it from a combine, I think.
Okay. It must have been his second run. Point is, he can run, he can make plays on balls. He's a strong, tough enough guy, of course. The idea of him going before Deonte Banks, like that's a Dante Banks. I mean, it's going to be really interesting, right? To see how that plays out. I like this kid. I think he's in the 20s, quite honestly. And, he's just got such competitiveness to him that I think it'll be fun to watch how he develops. Does he come in as a number 3 at first? Or does he slot in for a team later on that's looking to have a guy come in right away? That's not easy to do. Remember that. There are a number of guys that get drafted in that 25 to 32 that might be a third for a while until they settle in and get themselves comfortable.
Well, and you said that about, how do I say this to my owner? If the guy's the 15th pick and, he's coming in to play nickel, he's not the nickel back. He's not the inside corner, but he's coming in as my 5th defensive back in subs and only getting, 50 to 70% play time. Or maybe it's even worse. Maybe he's a dime guy. He's the 6th defensive back and he's coming in because you play a big nickel or something like that. And he's only getting 30% play time. You can obviously at pick 32, that's not so bad because you're already a good team. You could already talk about it like that. But at pick 15, it's a harder conversation to have. Like, hey, this guy's going to come in and be my sub guy for a couple of years before you make him a starter. Now, the Vikings did that with Trey Waynes at 11. Like, he sat behind Terrence Newman for 2 straight years. We've seen that with Dre Kirkpatrick. I think we're talking a lot about Mike Zimmer guys. Zimmer not particularly, lovey-dovey towards younger defensive backs, but that can happen with first-round picks. You much rather that happen a little bit later and have them come in and be a guy who is amazing from the jump, but isn't necessarily having to start and play 80 snaps every game right away.
Yeah, and this comes back to, like we say, at any level, right? You have to know, as a general manager, it's imperative to know, of course, what your head coach wants, but what the coordinator wants and who's going to be developing this guy, right? I mean, meaning your position coach. Who is your secondary coach? What is his style? What are they expecting? And to me, that's a big thing because, again, there's a make or break element to these position coaches. I've talked about it ad nauseum, but it's really, really important. And you have to put these guys in the right place. You get a guy like Joey who can come up and mug you. That's great. He could start very early, right? have him in the right situation where, you know, there's help over top while he's settling in. And but if you're putting him out on the island right away, not saying he couldn't handle it, but you know, there's going to be growing pains. We know that.
Yeah, and that's always the hard part about playing young players on a team that is good, right? Like it was like when the Steelers played Artie Burns because he was their first round pick, and yet you're trying to win, and if you're trying to go through some things like that, that's a hard confluence. You know, the Chiefs with Trent McDuffie. Now McDuffie got hurt, and they had to play younger guys, and then he came, or younger guys even than him as far as pedigree, and then he comes back and is a integral part of a Super Bowl. It can happen, but it's trickier that way, and you know, that'll be interesting to see where he goes. It'll be interesting to see where Brian Branch goes because, you know, he's sort of more of a inside guy. We don't really see inside guys being taken that high. Dax Hill went last year at pick, I believe, 30 to the Bengals. That'll be, or 31 to the Bengals. That is, you know, that's one, you know, I'm still sad that the Bengals made that Super Bowl. Hence, I wanted them picking 30 and not 31 in that one in my mind. But that's actually what happened. So, Thomas didn't really like that joke. He just kind of nodded along.
I got it. No, I got it. I'm following. I was waiting for the next delivery.